Hello everyone, welcome to Step by Step Engineering. In this video, I wanted to go over a infrared heater I installed in my parents' garage. And this will also be a review and a kind of instruction thing as well, so that's good. This heater really like, because this garage is pretty massive, so trying to heat this whole thing up in the winter takes a while, to the point where you have to use like a propane heater to kind of get it done fast. So this infrared heater, you can just stand in front of the workbench here, and I'm getting blasted with heat right away. It's totally radiant heat, and you just get heated up as soon as you turn it on, which is nice. The heat up time for it is about 3 seconds or so it's very quick. Normally, if we used like electric space heaters and stuff in here, we would have to put them like on the workbench right here or on the ground to try to warm up your hands and stuff in here, and that was kind of limited in how good it would work, especially if the garage door was open. But with this here, I have a good range here where I'm actually heated. Like if I actually stand below this ladder, I'll back the camera up for a better perspective. Standing directly below the unit, this is extremely hot right here, even more so than over there, even though it's not facing me. And that's because it has angled metal in the back that reflects the radiant heat. It's infrared light actually is what it is, and so some of it is getting reflected down at me, plus you're still in the visible range of that bulb there that's producing a lot of that infrared heat. So even in this spot directly down here I'm warm, and this is still several feet out from the workbench, probably 3 or 4 feet away. Zoom the camera back in. But yeah, I'm still getting heat even right here. So I have it aimed slightly down, so that way when you're working over here, you still get some heat. And you also get heat from the sides of it. I can still feel it right here. So okay, at this angle, I can still feel some radiant heat, so that's cool. And right now, this thing is drawing 1200 watts approximately. I have a nice kilowatt meter right here. These are super awesome. I highly recommend these. So 1229 watts. And it actually draws more power than this usually, but I have it on a 16 gauge extension cord, which is a little too thin for this application. I should get something a little thicker, like 14 gauge realistically is the proper sizing for this for short cords. And then this cord just runs around to this GFCI circuit I have, and that circuit has its own voltage drop as well. So overall there's about 10 volts of voltage drop with the cord and the circuit going to the breaker combined. So because of that, you're missing out on some performance of the heater for right now. So if I get a better extension cord, then this thing's heat output will be much higher, because it is just a resistive bulb in there basically. And then that'll also be safer too, because this 16 gauge cord is like very temporary, and it's really not thick enough to carry that kind of current long term. 16 gauge cords are rated for like 13 amps temporarily, and then about 10 amps like technically constantly, but realistically you should go a little bit less than that. So this heater right now has 3 heat settings. Here's the remote. It comes with 2 different remotes, this one, which is nice. So if I lose one, it's not really a big deal. I'll have a backup, because this thing does use remotes to operate. There's no manual override on there or anything. There is a power switch on the side. So that turns the unit on or off basically, just kind of breaks the circuit, but you can't actually get the bulb to turn on unless you have the remote. So just make sure you don't lose these. I recommend putting these guys in Ziploc bags. My dad invented that solution. He just put that in a Ziploc bag. I've had this remote for years for this TV, and it's still in great condition. We replaced the bag a couple of times. So we'll have to do the same thing for these. Then these have to live in the garage where they're not gonna get lost, or else then this heater is unusable. So that's basically the only downside of this one, is if you lose the remotes, then you gotta get a replacement online, or the thing's kind of a dud. So you gotta be careful with that. But you do have 3 heat settings. low, medium, high. I did actually verify that with this kilowatt here. It does step it down to about a third less power per lower mode, so that's nice. And one thing I'm going to demonstrate is you can actually use a 16 gauge cord with this temporarily if you run it at the lower power levels. So like at 1500 watts right now on this circuit, it's able to draw how many amps? 11.27 amps. And that cord's rated for 13 amps temporarily, but 10 amps more continuously, basically. So what we need to do here is step this down a bit so this cord doesn't get warm, because I don't like to use the full I don't like to use the full amperage rating of a cord. That's not healthy for it. So we'll just turn this down. There we go, got a little dimmer. And now at that middle wattage setting, it is pulling 9.8 amps, and that cord is rated for about 10 amps continuously. So we could actually run this for a while at this setting, but not for forever at that high setting. So this would be something I would just let it run at. And the wattage right there, cycle around, 864 watts. So it's pretty good. So not quite 1,000. If you have on a circuit that doesn't have as much voltage drop, then you will get closer to that 1,000 watt rating. So that's why I'm missing some performance right here. But we'll try it on the low setting now. The remote's pretty good. You do have to make sure you get the sensor, like if you aim below the metal piece there where the name is of the product, that's like kind of where the eye is for the remote. So if you aim there, then it works better. Now we're drawing about 500 watts at the 500 watt setting, so it's a little more accurate there. That's mostly because our circuit doesn't have much voltage drop now. So 8 amp of draw, let's see, 115 volts. So yeah, way less voltage drop at the low setting. So I'm gonna go ahead and step it back up to the high setting, and you'll see how fast that drops down. Down to 108.7, and then it kind of rebounded a bit to 109. And the reason it gobbles more power initially and then settles back down is strictly because this thing is just a giant resistor, basically. And when resistors are cooler, they have less resistance and more amperage can flow through them, and that ends up causing a higher voltage drop in the circuit. Once the bulb gets hotter, not as much current can pass through it because it gains more resistance, and then that's why the voltage drop rebounds just a little bit. We actually just saw it jump back up to like 109.2, but yeah, I have seen it go like a volt below that when it's initially starting up, basically. So that's just kind of interesting. One thing I'm going to do is go ahead and plug it into this circuit and see if it performs any better, because I think this circuit's better, and I have shorter lengths of extension cord I can use. They're the same rating, so we should get less drop there. So let's go ahead and test that out. Okay, so I swapped out the extension cords and circuit. So we're at this shorter electrical circuit. This is a different breaker too. We have this cord going right to here. So it's easily half the length of the other black cord. And we have a similar starting circuit voltage, which is convenient. The other circuit was about 119 starting with no load on it, basically. And you can see that it's off right now. One thing I want to note is this does have a 2 watt idle power draw. So if it's not on, basically, like right now it's not. So in the winter time and stuff, you can leave it plugged in and that's fine. But in the summer, you should unplug it so you're not just wasting electricity for no reason. 2 watts isn't much, but whatever. Helps keep the bills down. Okay, so now we're gonna see how much the voltage drops on this circuit with this cord. I haven't tested this one, so I'm kind of curious how it'll perform. So I'm gonna turn on the high setting right now. The kilowatt didn't like that. But yeah, so the circuit voltage is 113.6 now, and the other one was 109, basically what we were receiving at the kilowatt on the high setting. go ahead and do down. Amperage, 11.5 rather. Wattage is 1,311. So the wattage is a little higher. I think it was about 50 watts higher now compared to what it was in the other circuit. So that's pretty cool. This is on the medium setting now. We see the wattage here is also higher than what it was on the other circuit for the same heat setting. And that's just because the circuit voltage is higher. So basically the conclusion here is if you do have a short run of a circuit and you are able to achieve 120 volts even with this thing running full tilt, then you'll probably pretty much hit the wattage rating of this, which is great. But even if it's not putting out the advertised 1500 watt rating at 120 volts, because realistically it's hard to achieve that voltage to get that, this is still pretty hot. And this is on the medium setting still. I can step it up to the high setting, nice and responsive, and it's even hotter now. I can feel that. It's almost too hot to look at for a really long time, which is interesting, so that's kind of cool. And I'm about 5 feet away. I did some measuring and I found the effective maximum distance from this is about 5 to 6 feet. But once you go past 6 feet, then like it really decays in terms of how condensed the thermal radiation is that you feel. But when you're about 5 feet away, that's pretty good. When you start getting closer than 4 feet, it's too hot, basically. So putting it on like a ceiling like this where it's far away from you is good. Just make sure you install it correctly and then check later and make sure the ceiling is not getting hot above it. In my case, my ceiling is staying nice and cool. I have a good amount of clearance so I can get a view of that. You can see it's not touching the ceiling except for the bracket. There's about 1.5 inches of room above it. And this garage is also chilly to begin with. You're not using it in a blazing hot summer. So yeah, I did not feel the drywall being any warmer than its surroundings after a couple of minutes of it running. But long term, I'll go ahead and check it again too. I checked after like 10 minutes or so and it still was not warm up there. And even the bracket itself, I touched a little bit and it was not warm on the part that actually lays on the ceiling. So that's a really good sign there. But yeah, I'm very happy with this, and this will help keep my dad warm when he works in the garage in the winter. And it works right away. And hopefully it helps keep costs down somewhat too, because electric for us is cheaper than getting propane actually. So, and that's with finding places that have it pretty cheap. We would just take these tanks, I think these are 40 pounders, to like a vineyard and stuff near us, and they'll go ahead and fill these up pretty cost competitively. And even so, it's about the same cost of just heating this room electrically. So that's kind of interesting. I haven't done that math in a while, so it's possible prices are different now and stuff, and that could be different. But as a convenience factor too, you're not driving your car around and stuff to go get propane and carrying those big tanks. This just works right away, so it's very convenient. All right, hope this helped you out. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel, because that really helps me grow and it helps you see content like this in the future. And go ahead and share this with people too if you think it'll be helpful. Thank you.